What is up, and welcome to Market Psychology 101, where we look for value in the markets when there's fear and are cautious when there's greed. In today's video, we are going to be taking a look at all things Ethereum. Let's start off with fear and greed. You can see we're still around this 50 neutrality territory, just a touch into fear, but still in this downtrend that we had when Bitcoin was challenging those extreme greed areas, had a little bit of a correction. Are we making a higher low? Are we getting ready for some seasonality, a late September, early October dump? So overall, still pretty much the same thing as far as fear and greed. And going over to seasonality wise, just remember for crypto, August, September does tend to be the worst time of the year for crypto. Now, October into December tends to be the strongest time. We could get some seasonality that dumps us into early October, so just be on the lookout for that. Now, in today's video, like I said, we're talking about Ethereum, and I believe we are in phase two. Actually, I'll show you on the charts why we are in phase two on our path to alt season, and eventually looking for phase four. That's when Bitcoin tops when it's too expensive to keep buying, and we get massive rotations, even into large caps and Ethereum. The last two cycle tops where Bitcoin topped in late 2017 and here in the double peaks in 21. Remember, Ethereum had really nice pumps from those Bitcoin tops. In the weeks to month following, Ethereum dang near did a 2x in both these situations. So be on the lookout for that. As good as Ethereum's looking right now, challenging its former all-time high around 5K, in these moments where Bitcoin tops and then rotates, we can see Ethereum dang near do a 1.5 to a 2x. And I'll show you that on the charts in a little bit as well. Now, as far as alt season's concerned, I'm glad that Blockchain Center made that correction from this thing spiking a couple days ago. We are still coming out of this Bitcoin year, so we are in phase two. I'll show you that in the charts. But let's get over into Ethereum. Now, we have a Fibonacci retracement drawn from high to low, the November 21 high to the current cycle low that we've started from. And in this Fibonacci retracement, you can see that Ethereum's coming down to this 888 level, and that is around 4,000, 4,009. We're on the weekly time frame. Now, the weekly candles, what did they show us? Even though we made a all-time high, we only have a wick above here. And I'll go to Bitcoin and show you why that's important. We're going to go to March 2024. People are excited about Bitcoin making a new high, but this is why I have on Heikin-Ashi candles. You see that if we have the candle bodies underneath those former all-time highs and only wicks getting above, that we can technically go lower. So back to Ethereum. That's where we're at right now, challenging that former all-time high. Again, think of this like March of 24 for Bitcoin. Not that it has to have a huge correction, but we do want to see candle bodies closing above that. Now, let's take a look at some other metrics here. We have our moving averages. On the weekly, we are quite detached from it. Now, here you see the 20-week moving average. This is a 50, 100, 200, okay? That 20-week moving average, it is coming up, and I like how it's coming up to a level right in here where we had those former tops. So I think this range between the 888 at around 4,030 to the 20 moving average and these tops, I'm just going by candle body, somewhere around 3,800. 3,800 to 4K, I think, is a good range. Let's take a look at the daily. And would you believe it, the 100-day moving average even lines up with this former top here. So again, this little box range right here, I think, would be a good area of support should Ethereum keep falling. What does our buy sell signal say when we turn this on? We do have a weekly sell signal, and this is the first time we've got one all the way since June. This was a 2-week sell. These things can go on for a while, so if you're waiting for confirmation, that is something that you can use this indicator. 1020 MA crossover Heikin-Ashi signals by Shobajek. All right, let's take a look at a couple other indicators here on the weekly. Let's do ultimate RSI and the moving average convergence divergence. That's the MACD, and good. We're on the weekly time frame still. I'm a little hesitant here with the stochastic flipping negative, MACD even turning down as well. Now, when the stochastic turns negative, this isn't always a one-to-one correlation. Sometimes we can get these big drops, but we don't always have to, okay? Even going to last cycle, as Ethereum was getting ready to turn bullish, you can see sometimes these corrections can be a little bit minor. Let's take off the stochastic. Let's go to the MACD here. And as far as the MACD, let's zoom way in. Well, because the MACD is coming down again, it doesn't mean that we have to get super negative, but this can be. If we are indeed going from phase 2 to phase 3 soon, we could be getting ready for a nice buy the dip opportunity. And actually, look at the date down there. Speaking of seasonality, I mean, this was dropping late September into early October. So are we in October 2020, a similar situation? Maybe. Now, as far as price targets, all right, we can see we have this fib drawn, and if we take our fib off log scale, even though our chart is on log scale, we can see some price targets. Let's scroll down. The 1618 at around 7,300. The 1236 now, if Ethereum, or if when it breaks former all-time highs, watch reactions around the 1236, around 5,800, and the 1618, and around 7,300. Now, we have the 2618 up here at 11K, the 3618 at 15K. Can it get there? I do think this area is like the most bullish possible scenario. You've probably heard Tom Lee talking about 16K Ethereum, and then he said 64K Ethereum. I do not believe in 64K Ethereum personally myself. Now let's take a look. Let's take a look at drawing a fib from the last cycle. Maybe you're wondering, where did Ethereum go to last cycle? All right, and we can zoom in here and see that. Remember, Ethereum got to 5K. Let's do this. Let's delete that. We can always redraw it. But last cycle, we got between the 2618 and the 3618. Okay, that's where we have both tops. This was the alt season top, and this was the top in November. So 2618 to 3618 last cycle. Should that repeat? Now, each cycle, we do tend to have some regression. So, if that was the 2618 to 3618 last cycle, this cycle, that'd be the topping area. Could it happen again? We'll see. But that is what I'm looking for. Now, let's go to coin market cap. And I want you to kind of file this in the back of your mind, because we're going to take a look at Ethereum, Bitcoin. Now, Ethereum, it's the number one overall altcoin, okay? Bitcoin, there is no second best, as Michael Saylor said many times. But the number two overall crypto and the number one altcoin is Ethereum. This is the standard. And, keep in mind, if Ethereum is getting up to that area of around 10K, 11K, it's going to, well, you can do the math right here, even doubling Ethereum to, let's say, what would that be, 8,400? That'd be around a 1 trillion market cap Ethereum, okay? 8,400, doubling the market cap, doubling the price. Tripling it, getting to around 12K. So for a 12, let's say 12.6, okay? That's tripling it. This would be around $1.5 trillion market cap. Now, if that were to happen, I'd be looking for Bitcoin to be somewhere between the range of 150 to 200K, probably closer to 200K. Now, that lines up with the log regression on the rainbow chart. If we take a look at the orange box at 200K, and that even falls in line with this regression of these peaks. We go down a box each time, and you see that orange box at the beginning of it is right at around 200K. So if we have 200K Bitcoin, then Bitcoin is going to have a market cap of around 4 trillion. That wouldn't quite shock me if that's where we get end of cycle sometime within the next 6 months. So with Bitcoin being around 4 trillion market cap, could Ethereum be 40% of that? Okay, 40% of 4 trillion would be 1.6 trillion. Okay, 4 times 40%, 4 times 4, move the decimal, 1.6 trillion. Now, if Bitcoin only got to, let's say, 150K, they'd have a market cap of around 3 trillion. 40% of that would be 1.2 trillion. That's how we get our 10K Ethereum. Now, let's go to Ethereum compared to Bitcoin. This is a common chart a lot of YouTubers talk about. And one thing I'd wish they would explain is, what does this mean? ETH Bitcoin is 0.22. So what? Who cares? Now, 0.22 in this ratio, remember, we're taking a ratio from Ethereum against Bitcoin. That ratio is 0.22, also 22%. Going back to CoinMarketCap, 500 billion divided into roughly 2.3 trillion is 0.22, 22%. If Ethereum had the same market cap, then this would be 1, okay? 1.00, 100%. You can't get, so that's what we're looking at as far as that ratio, if Ethereum got to it. Now, if it got above it, that's how we would get above the current percentage, okay? But you can see that since 2017, we have this lower high trend line, okay? Now, I drew this fib leaving out these wicks here. I actually adjusted this fib earlier as I was looking at this chart. And we do have these lower highs, and so far we have this higher low. Remember what I said, we are in phase 2 because Ethereum, its percentage is growing against Bitcoin, okay? Ethereum's outperforming Bitcoin. Are we hearing talks of the flipping? No. I don't really think that's going to be the case. Maybe not until alt season when we get that rotation at the end. Remember, that's when Bitcoin is too expensive to keep buying. So right now we see Ethereum, it's honoring these fibs. It ran into the 236, had a pullback, ran into the 382. Okay, when you're below that, you can still technically make new lows, but it got above that. Ran into the 0.5 and it's getting a pullback. Maybe it'll get back to the 382. Now, I think the marriage of moving averages, that's the indicator I use, EMA 20, 50, 100, 200, red's a 20, orange is a 50, light blue 100, dark blue 200. I think marrying the moving averages and the fibs work quite nicely. Getting above the 50 moving average is bullish. So Ethereum paired against Bitcoin, it is in a bullish trend. It's also above the 382. That's double bullish, double the fun. Now, it ran into resistance here at the 0.5 and the 100-week moving average. Now, I drew this squiggly line about a month ago. No one's ever accused me of being a good artist, even though art is subjective, I'll have you know. But I would not be surprised to see a little bit of a pullback. Again, we've been talking about how a pullback in the early October can be kind of expected. A lot of seasonality charts even show this at a pullback. You can go to Sentiment Trader, take a look at that website as well. A pullback in the early October is quite common. So if we do get a pullback, maybe alts Ethereum gets down to that, again, 38.9 or 3,800 to 4K level. That's where we encounter this 382. And then we can break above these levels of resistance. We have the 200 week there and the golden pocket. Now, one thing I want to bring your attention to, let's turn off these moving averages, is that when Ethereum Bitcoin gets from 0.3 to 0.5, that is when we've had alt season, right? So, and it makes sense. You see here, this is where Ethereum's really taken off against Bitcoin. This alt season lasted about a month. Now, January 8th, as you see at the bottom, that's when alt season was truly ending. Not for ETH, but for many of the altcoins. Now, back in 21, when we had alt season in April, again, look where Ethereum Bitcoin is between 0.3 to 0.5, okay? Now, even around 0.4 is when it was coming to an end. Now, remember what I was talking about with market cap, all right? We have the last two cycles showing us that ETH Bitcoin, even with these lower highs and regression, can get to 40% of the market cap of Bitcoin, all right? That's not out of the question, 40%. Let's even add on Bitcoin and see what happens. Now, we're on the weekly. On the daily, I think this shows it even better. Let's move way back to 2017, okay? You see here, Bitcoin topped mid-December, okay? Let's line up that Bitcoin top. You see the date at the bottom, mid-December. Now, Bitcoin was too expensive to keep buying, so we get that rotation into ETH, okay? Remember what I said. We get this when Bitcoin is too expensive to keep buying. We get that rotation. Ethereum well outperforms Bitcoin, okay? Now, last cycle, let's go to 2021, April. Okay, here's where where Bitcoin topped. And from that area, we got that rotation, all right? Ethereum, Bitcoin did very well from there, okay? And Ethereum's price went up quite a bit. Now, let's go to Ethereum's chart again, all right? We have Bitcoin on here. Now, I want you to pay notice something. Look at the price of Ethereum when Bitcoin topped, all right? This is the alt season metric. This is around 2,200. When we were getting that rotation of alt season, okay, this went till mid-May, Ethereum got to a little over 4K, so that's almost a 2x. Let's go to 2017. You see, in 2017, Bitcoin topped when Ethereum was around $700, a little under. But by the end of that rotation, it was near 1,400, around a 2x. So I'll bring you back to where Ethereum is today. If Ethereum is going to do dang near a 2x, and it could still, maybe eclipse its former all-time high, get the 5K. A 2x gets us to 10K Ethereum. 10K Ethereum is around, that 1.2 to 1.4 trillion market cap, and that is around that 0.4 that we showed on ETH Bitcoin. I hope you're able to follow that math a little bit with me, okay? So I know it seems crazy right now, but we do have proof that in the past, let's go to the weekly, make this easier. In the past, when we get that alt season, again, things get a little bit unreasonable and euphoric, and that's okay. We want that, so when things get a little too bullish, that's when the whales are rotating. That's when retail is chasing and gambling. That's when your friends, family, coworkers are bringing up, and random people are bringing up crypto. They're late to the game. You guys are smart. You all are early. So remember, that's what we're looking for ETH. It can still do well against Bitcoin, as I showed you. So right now, Ethereum, it is getting a little bit of a pullback against Bitcoin, as well as Ethereum in general. But I do think this area of where this 20-week moving average is, this box right here, 4K to 3,800, would be a good area to watch for. Could you 2 to 3x your money from there? That's what we're looking for by the end of alt season. But in my opinion, the time to buy Ethereum was down here around 2,500 and under. Okay, even when it hit that 100-month moving average, tagged it. We've been going up ever since. But that, I think Ethereum as a whole is a great indicator as far as how to anticipate alt season when it happens. When you see Ethereum really start to take off and ETH Bitcoin getting to that 0.3 level and higher, that's when you know it's go time. So that'll do for the analysis on Ethereum and kind of a little bit of alt season. Hope you enjoyed. Comment your thoughts below, and I hope you all have a wonderful Wednesday. Take care.